welcome to our new podcast where we dive deep into topics shaping the world of pharmaceuticals. Today we have Dr. Jude Nwokike. He is the Vice President at USP and Director of the PKM Plus Program. With over 2 decades of experience in strengthening medical products regulation and quality assurance system, Dr. Nwokike is a leading expert in the world global health care system. So welcome, Dr. Nwokike. It's an honor to have you with us today.
Thank you very much. It's really my pleasure.
Thank you. So let's start by delving into your remarkable journey. You've had an extensive experience spanning various sectors from your tenure at the U.S. Food and Drug Administration system to the USP. Could you share with our listeners some key highlights and pivotal moments that have shaped your career path?
Thank you for that question. Well, thinking about pivotal moments, I think there are 2 that I'd like to recollect. One of them is when I left the pharmaceutical industry to start working in public health. So early in my career, I spent 10 years working with Pfizer, the global pharmaceutical company. And at the turn of the century, in early 2000s, I had an opportunity to venture into public health. And that was when the HIV/AIDS was ravaging several countries in Africa, particularly Botswana, a small country in southern Africa. And so I had the opportunity to go to Botswana and work in the National Antiretroviral Treatment Program. So for me, that was pivotal to lead the pharmaceutical industry and venture into public health. The second one was when I left the U.S. Food and Drug Administration to work with United States Pharmacopeia. At the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, as soon as I joined, I thought that I was going to stay there until retirement. It's such a pride to have worked with an organization like that, as briefly as I did. But when the opportunity to work at the United States Pharmacopeia on the Promoting Quality of Medicines program there, I couldn't resist that, because with that, it took me back to global health, which had now become my passion.
Wow, that's really admirable, actually. So regarding the PQM Plus program, could you elaborate on program's goals, mission, concept, and significance in ensuring access to medicines worldwide?
Thank you. Yeah, the PKM Plus stands for the Promoting the Quality of Medicines Plus Program. It is a 6-year cooperative agreement between the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, and the United States Pharmacopeia. This PKM Plus program has the overarching objective to sustainably strengthen quality assurance system for medical products in low and middle income countries. As I mentioned, it's a 6-year program that is ending September 25, 2025.
Okay.
And the intermediate results of the PKM Plus program include to strengthen the governance around medicines, medical products, to strengthen regulatory systems. Typically, regulatory systems are those systems that each country have to ensure that the products used by their population are safe, effective, and of the right quality. The third objective of PKM Plus is to, increase resources, optimize the resources that are needed for sustainable quality assurance systems. The fourth objective is to improve manufacturing. We typically call it this manufacturing and supply of priority medicines, drugs for TB, drugs for malaria, drugs for HIV/AIDS, for neglected tropical diseases. These are products that are in short supply globally. These are products that are not very enticing for the big pharmaceutical companies to venture into. So when we come in, we help the pharmaceutical companies to actually venture into making those products. And then the last objective of PKM Plus is to provide thought leadership and technical leadership in the global quality assurance system arena. And so across those 5 objectives, we use that to address issues related to regulatory and quality assurance systems training. And over the course of implementing this program for the past 5 years, we're actually getting into the last year, we've had tremendous successes from the number of countries that we have supported to progress in their maturity. WHO has a way to measure the maturity of national regulatory authorities as they use a tool called the Global Benchmarking Tool. And then they classify maturity of regulatory systems across 4 layers: maturity level 1, 2, 3, and 4. WHO requires that each country must have a regulatory system that has minimum of maturity level number 3. And so we are supporting multiple countries to aspire towards that maturity level number 3. And we're doing that across multiple countries. We're helping countries to establish quality assurance laboratory, quality control laboratories. These laboratories are what you need to be able to reliably test products in your market to be sure that they are the right quality. And then, as I said earlier on, we're supporting manufacturing of critically essential medicines that are often in short supply and that are needed for treatment of public health diseases.
And to this point, in which countries PKM Plus program is currently active?
So we are active in close to 30 countries. In Central Asia, we're here in Uzbekistan, in Kazakhstan, in Tajikistan. In Southeast Asia, we are there in up to 4 countries, including Nepal, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Myanmar. In Africa, we are there in dozens of countries. And then we have activities going on in Panama. There are also other countries where we don't have country-specific activity, but where we go to support manufacturers, because there are manufacturers in that country that want to play in the public health market, but they lack the capacity for good manufacturing practices. So my team will go to those countries and teach them how to make these products according to international standards. So my team often travels to India. They travel also to South Korea. In some instances, they travel to Indonesia. And these are countries where they are having manufacturers interested in making these products.
If we move to the pharmaceutical landscape in Uzbekistan, what specific outcomes or impacts is the program striving to achieve in Uzbekistan market in the realm of strengthening medical product regulation and quality assurance system?
So in Uzbekistan, we really have a program that I'm very proud of. We started off first with the predecessor program to PKM Plus. So in 2014, we got invited by United States Agency for International Development to implement Promoting Quality of Medicines PKM Program. And then in 2019, PKM became PKM Plus. So we've been now in Uzbekistan for nearly 10 years. And in the course of that, our focus has been to help Uzbekistan in strengthening its regulatory and quality assurance system, particularly to help in addressing TB disease. And so to that extent, we are working to support the regulatory authority, we are working to support manufacturers. If I give 1 or 2 examples of what we're doing with the regulatory authority. For instance, the regulatory authority has an interest to achieve maturity level 3. As I mentioned, that is a requirement now from WHO that countries aspire towards ML3. That's what we call it. And so we are working closely with Uzbekistan across the 9 regulatory functions that WHO requires for the attainment of ML3. Those 9 regulatory functions include, I may not list all of them, but they include market authorization. That function needs to be happening very well. It includes regulatory inspection. It includes licensing, it includes laboratory testing, capacity to test products. It includes post-marketing surveillance, what we call medicine control and surveillance, and several others. There are 9 of them. So we are the only organization that are working with the regulatory authority in Uzbekistan, CPPS, to support them across those 9 regulatory functional areas. If I take an example of laboratory, we are working with 2 laboratories here in Uzbekistan to ensure that they can achieve WHO pre-qualification. WHO pre-qualification of a laboratory then means that that laboratory is globally recognized, that they can test products to ensure that those products are of the right quality, and if they are not of the right quality, they can identify that they are not of the right quality, and therefore the regulatory authority can now remove them from the market. In the area of inspections, we are supporting CPPS in building capacity for good manufacturing practices. This is also an area that is critical for the state agency, where actually state agency is a major partner that we are working with.
Yes.
And so all the GXP practices, the good manufacturing, good distribution, good clinical practice, we are supporting the state agency along that. And part of our aspiration is that Uzbekistan can apply and become a member of the PICS, Pharmaceutical Control and Inspection Scheme, which is a membership of regulatory inspectorates that have capacity to inspect manufacturers. So I'm using those 2 examples to give you an insight into the work we do in Uzbekistan. We also, lastly, we have a manufacturer here in Uzbekistan, Nobel Pharmaceuticals, that we are working with, and they are aspiring towards WHO pre-qualification of their TB medicines. And so we are looking forward that we can, together with Nobel, they can achieve WHO pre-qualification. And I said lastly, but forgot to mention that this visit, I was fortunate to come to Tashkent this week because we launched a new project that is part and parcel of the existing PQM Plus Program. That project is called Diversifying Asia's Pharmaceutical Supply Chain Project. The intention of that project is to strengthen the capacity of Uzbekistan to produce, to regulate, and to export active pharmaceutical ingredients and finished formulations. And all that will help to do is to reduce dependence in foreign sources of medicine and also to build that capacity here for export. So all this, when all this is going on and collaborating with the state agency and the regulatory authority CPPS, we think we are on a good trajectory to making Uzbekistan a very, very important pharmaceutical hub in the region.
Actually, you've answered my next question. So, generally, could you provide us with your perspective on the current state of the pharmaceutical industry and quality of medicines in Uzbekistan?
So that was really something I was reflecting on yesterday evening after the first day of the 3rd International Pharmaceutical Forum. Because I had a lot of presentations that I listened to and was I was in awe on what the government has done, what the state agency is putting together that will launch Uzbekistan capacity in the pharmaceutical sector. And so I think the future is very bright here. I've not seen this well thought out menu of incentives that are rolled out as Director Azizov described in his plenary yesterday. I've not seen countries that have been able to drive clarity on what they intend to achieve over the next 5 to 10 years. And I call attention to 1 or 2 areas. One is with regards to the pharma park, the life science, what I would describe as a life sciences park, and how the structure, the design of that is so integrated across several ecosystem and value chain that will support pharmaceutical industrial development. I think that's first of a kind that I've seen. And so my challenge to Uzbekistan is to think about your niche. Global pharmaceutical sector is quite competitive. And for you to get to a niche, you have to actually be able to be known for quality. for international standards and for quality. And you need to be able to prioritize, to understand the kind of products to venture into. And when you're known for quality, for achieving international quality standards, then it is a very, very bright opportunity.
Actually, I guess you've heard about this. Recently, we had a concerning incident involving Doc 1 Max medicine in Uzbekistan. So what recommendations or strategies you can suggest to us so that we can prevent similar occurrences in the future?
Yes, yeah, that's really a sad incident that happened.
Yeah.
And it hasn't been only in Uzbekistan. Indeed, the incidence of diethylene glycol contamination of liquid pediatric formulations had been going on since 1937 and was actually what led to the establishment, part of what led to the establishment of the US Food and Drug Administration. Since then, it has occurred in nothing less than 15 other times around the world, happening even twice and 3 times in some countries, including Nigeria. Diethylene glycol contamination of pediatric preparations is quite a very unfortunate thing. It is unfortunate because it's happened repeatedly, as I said, but also that is impacting on the most vulnerable of our population, children. And so this is something that we don't want to continue to happen. And there are ways to avoid that. One of the ways to avoid that is to build strong quality assurance systems. It is a failure of systems that lead to contamination of products, whether they are contamination of liquid preparations or contamination of adult formulations, as is happened in Pakistan, when cardiac drugs killed close to 100 people in Pakistan in 2012. Is always a failure of systems. Definitely. And so my recommendation is to build out capacity for pre-approval for before you allow a product into the market. So for pre-approval, licensing, import permits, and inspection. And to make sure that those that manufacture product domestically and those that import it into the country are well regulated, and that they are well regulated. There is menu of requirements they have to meet before they are allowed to participate in this business. And when they begin to participate, that the sanctions, when they don't meet expectations, that the sanctions are severe enough to be a deterrent for wrong practices. The second thing is to have capacity for testing products. Now, typically what we've seen is that when you have diethylene glycol contamination of products, it goes on for weeks and weeks and weeks. Now, when you have a laboratory that have capacity and you take samples and you test and you see the result, you're able to stop it as soon as possible and prevent subsequent use of the product. So a laboratory that has capacity to test product is very critical as you plan to avoid incidences like that in future. Lastly, is capacity to require manufacturers to ensure that the quality of the excipients they use in their manufacturing are assured. It's the responsibility of the manufacturers, no matter where they buy their excipients from, that they account that those excipients are of the right quality. Recently, WHO came out with a guideline on expectation, GMP expectations and all that for excipients. So I will recommend for the regulatory authority in Uzbekistan to review that the new WHO guideline and begin to adopt it domestically. But again, very unfortunate that the issue of diethylene glycol and ethylene glycol contamination of liquid preparations continue to happen. We should all work together to ensure that they do not recur again.
Thank you very much. So looking ahead, how do you envision the future of pharmaceutical industry of Uzbekistan? What kind of transformation or advancement do you anticipate in this sector?
Yeah, I think the future is bright, really very, very bright. Again, based on what I had yesterday and the work that my team has been doing in this country for nearly 10 years now. Uzbekistan has the opportunity to grow its pharmaceutical industry faster than other countries by learning from their mistakes. There are several examples to learn from. Learning from the example of what South Korea did, what Singapore did, Malaysia, Thailand, India. There are several, Brazil, there are several examples of what to learn from. But I think if you look, for instance, at India, India had a gradual development of the pharmaceutical industry from the very first interest in self-sufficiency to then interest in going global. And when they started going global, they tried to engage in the global health, in the public health market. At some point, India was responsible for providing more than 90% of the global antiretroviral HIV/AIDS drug needs. So one thing that may be valuable for Uzbekistan to consider, as soon as you're able to get your quality standards to quality to international standards, is to find ways to play in the global public health markets. And with that, then move on to the next level. Always look out for value in the pharmaceutical ecosystem. Where do you provide the greatest value? Then lastly, I think that the workforce, I will never stop talking about workforce. You are very lucky. You have a young population, well-trained, and I think Uzbekistan can feed on that and develop more life sciences graduates who can then work in the pharmaceutical sector, within the regulatory authority, within pharmaceutical companies, in the production, in the research and development. And when you do that, you can now begin to look at R&D. You can begin to look not just only on generics, but start looking at new therapeutic modalities in biologics, in cell and gene therapy, in emerging in digital therapeutics. So I think that is the future. And Uzbekistan can actually train these new life scientists to focus on those new areas.
Wow. So thank you very much, Dr. Nwokike, that you have shared your insights and experience. Your work is truly inspiring, and we are actually looking forward to seeing the impacts of PKM Plus Program to the global health care system. So, and to our listeners, I would like to thank you for listening to this podcast. Subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss the new interesting episodes. So if you have any questions or topics that you would like to us discuss, please feel free to write via emails or write below this podcast so that we can see it. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Really my pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.